Black Nanny seen on the floor with the children. The millionaire saw it, and it changed his life. Richard Bennett froze at the nursery door. His executive schedule had been cancelled last minute, something rare in his 15 years leading the largest construction company in New York City. He had come home earlier than usual, expecting silence and order as always. But the scene before him hit like a punch to the gut. Grace, the nanny who had cared for his twin children for 2 years, was lying on the floor atop a soft rug, cuddled with Ethan and Lily. The three figures were fast asleep, and Richard noticed she had taken the blanket from her own small maid's room to cover the children. "Miss Grace," he whispered, but she didn't wake. Richard stood there watching. Ethan, 4 years old, had his blonde head resting on Grace's shoulder. Lily, equally blonde and the same age, clung tightly to the nanny's hand even in sleep. There was something intimate about the scene, a maternal protectiveness that unsettled him deeply. Grace startled awake when she sensed his presence. Her eyes widened in alarm. "I'm sorry, Mr. Richard. I didn't hear you come in." She tried to get up quickly, but Ethan grumbled in his sleep, tightening his grip. "Stay there," Richard said, his voice rougher than intended. "Don't wake them." Grace looked at him, confused, but obeyed. Richard left the room quietly, but he couldn't shake the image from his mind. During dinner, served as usual by the housekeeper, Mrs. Martha, in the formal dining room, he barely touched his food. His wife Victoria arrived at 10 that night, straight from another charity event. She wore an expensive navy blue dress and was on the phone discussing details of an art auction. She waved absently at Richard and went upstairs without asking about the children. "How were the little ones today?" Richard asked Grace the next morning, something he had never done before. "They're angels, Mr. Richard," she replied, packing their school bags. "Today," Lily said, "she wants to be a teacher like Aunt Grace when she grows up." "Aunt Grace? That's what they call me." She smiled shyly. "I hope you don't mind." Richard fell silent. In the 2 years Grace had worked there, he had hardly paid her any attention. He knew she was 28, had come from rural Pennsylvania, and was extremely punctual and discreet. Beyond that, he'd never cared to know more. That afternoon, Richard did something he never imagined he would do. He left the board meeting early, claiming a headache, and went home. He wanted to see what the children's routine was like when he wasn't around. He parked in the garage and entered quietly through the back door. Laughter drifted from the garden. He approached the kitchen window and peeked out. Grace was sitting on the grass with Ethan and Lily, the three of them assembling a giant puzzle. "Aunt Grace, tell the bird story again," Lily requested. "Which bird, sweetheart?" "The one you saw in your town when you were little." Grace smiled and began telling them about a blue jay that nested in her grandmother's window. Richard realized she wasn't reading from a book, but weaving stories from her own memories. The children listened, fascinated, asking questions and begging for details. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. When snack time came, Richard watched Grace split her own sandwich after Lily said she was still hungry. The nanny ate only half her portion so the little girl could have her fill. Something tightened in Richard's chest. "Why didn't you ask Mrs. Martha to make more snacks?" he asked Grace that evening, trying to sound casual. "I didn't want to be a bother, Mr. Richard. Mrs. Martha already has so much work." "But you must be hungry." Grace seemed surprised he'd noticed. "I'm used to it, sir. Don't worry about me." Over the following days, Richard began noticing details that had once escaped him. He saw that Grace always arrived 15 minutes early and left 15 minutes late. When the children got hurt, they ran to her first. When they had nightmares, they called her name, not their parents. One morning, Richard decided to work from home. He settled into his office overlooking the garden and observed the full routine. Grace didn't just care for the children, she taught them. She showed them about plants while watering the garden, about math while counting toys, about kindness when a little bird landed on the patio table. "See, Ethan? The bird trusts us because we're calm and gentle," she said. "Just like you trust Aunt Grace, and Aunt Grace trusts you." Richard realized he was witnessing an education no expensive school could provide. Grace taught with her heart, building genuine bonds of love and trust. That evening, when Victoria returned from the spa, Richard tried to share what he'd seen. "Have you noticed how much the children adore Grace?" "Of course, Richard. That's what we pay her for, isn't it?" Victoria replied, without looking up from her phone. "No, I mean, it's different. They truly love her." "That's nice. It keeps them occupied so I can focus on my activities." Richard felt a hollow ache in his stomach. When was the last time he and Victoria had played with Ethan and Lily? When had they last truly seen them, not just as tasks to check off? The next week, Richard made a decision that would change everything. He cancelled a business trip to Washington, D.C., and decided to stay home for an entire afternoon without working. He wanted to connect with his own children. "Daddy's going to play with you today," he announced at lunch. Ethan and Lily exchanged glances, as if unsure what that meant. "Play what, Daddy?" Lily asked timidly. Richard realized he didn't even know what games they liked. Whatever you want?" "Can we play house?" Ethan suggested. "Aunt Grace does different voices for each doll." "Different voices?" Grace, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "I can help, Mr. Richard. The children love when we do little plays." For the next 2 hours, Richard found himself on the playroom floor, doing bear voices and making up silly stories. Ethan and Lily's laughter filled the house, a sound he barely remembered hearing before. Grace guided him gently, showing him how to spark their imagination. "Daddy? You're funny," Lily said, clinging to his neck. For the first time in years, Richard felt his heart truly warm. That night, after the children were asleep, Richard found Grace in the kitchen. She was preparing bottles for the night and laying out clothes for the next day. "Grace, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Mr. Richard." "How did you learn to care for children so well? Do you have kids?" Grace's face darkened for a moment. "No, sir, but I raised my 3 younger siblings. My mother worked for 2 families, so I was responsible for them." "And where are your siblings now?" "Still in Pennsylvania. Jason is 16 and finishing high school. The twins, Emma and Olivia, are 12. I send them money every month." Richard's throat tightened. "And your father?" "I never knew my father, Mr. Richard. My mother raised us alone until—" She stopped abruptly. "Until when?" "Until she got sick. That's why I came to New York City, to find a better paying job so I could send more money back to them. Jason takes care of the girls now, but he's too young for so much responsibility." Richard fell silent, processing. Grace was supporting 3 siblings on the salary she earned. Yet, she still gave all the love and dedication in the world to Ethan and Lily. "Grace, have you ever thought about furthering your education, taking a course?" "I've always dreamed of being a teacher, Mr. Richard, but I need to work to help my family. Maybe one day." "What if I helped you study? We could find a way for you to take evening or weekend classes." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You'd do that for me? You do so much for my children. It's the least I can do." In the days that followed, Richard found himself thinking often about Grace and her story. He began observing more closely how she interacted with Ethan and Lily, how she turned ordinary moments into life lessons. One afternoon, he witnessed a scene that stayed with him deeply. Ethan had broken an expensive crystal vase in the living room. Instead of scolding him or telling his parents, Grace knelt to his level. "It happens, sweetheart. Let's clean it up together, and then we'll think of a way for you to apologize to Mom and Dad, okay?" "I didn't mean to, Aunt Grace," Ethan cried. "I know you didn't. Accidents happen. What matters is that we take responsibility when we make mistakes and try to make things right. That's how we grow." Richard, watching from the shadows, remembered how his own father had reacted when he broke things as a child, shouting, punishment, humiliation. Grace was teaching responsibility through love, not fear. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. That night, Richard had a difficult conversation with Victoria. He shared his observations, how Grace had become essential not just to the children, but to the whole family. "Richard, you're exaggerating. She's just a nanny, a good one, I agree, but still an employee." "It's more than that, Victoria. She truly loves our children, and they love her too." "And what's the problem with that?" "The problem is that we, their actual parents, are strangers in our own children's lives." Victoria was silent for a moment. "Do you think I'm a bad mother?" "I don't think you're bad. But I think we've both gotten lost in social commitments and obligations. When was the last time you spent an entire afternoon with Ethan and Lily? No phone, no rush." Victoria had no answer. The following weekend, Richard proposed something different. "How about today it's just our family? No events, no obligations, just the four of us." "What about Grace?" "She deserves a day off, she works too hard." It was a revealing day. Without Grace around, Richard and Victoria had to truly connect with the children. They discovered Ethan loved to draw, and that Lily had an impressive memory for stories. They also realized how hard it was to keep their attention, something Grace made look effortless. "Daddy, Aunt Grace always knows what to do when I'm sad," Lily mentioned at dinner. "And what does she do?" "She sits with me and asks what's happening in my heart. Then she tells me a story that makes me feel better." Richard exchanged a glance with Victoria. When had either of them ever asked what was happening in their children's hearts? On Monday, Richard made a decision. He came home at lunchtime and called Grace for a talk. "Grace, I want to make you an offer. I'd like you to be more than a nanny. I want you to be the children's tutor, to have an active voice in their education, and I want to pay for you to study teaching." "Mr. Richard, I don't know what to say." "Say yes, you deserve it, and the children deserve to have you close to them forever." Grace began to cry. "Thank you so much, Mr. Richard, but there's one thing. My siblings in Pennsylvania. What about them? Jason is being bullied at school for being the older brother taking care of the girls, and the twins, they miss having a mother figure so much. I feel torn between taking care of them and taking care of Ethan and Lily." Richard grew thoughtful. "What if we brought your siblings to New York City?" "What do you mean?" "We have a guest house in the back that we never use. Your siblings could live there. Jason could attend a good school here, and the twins could too. You'd be close to everyone." Grace was speechless. "Mr. Richard, that would be an impossible dream." "Why impossible? You've cared for my family with so much love. Now it's my turn to care for yours." 2 weeks later, Richard was at LaGuardia Airport waiting for Jason, Emma, and Olivia to arrive from Philadelphia. Grace stood beside him, nervous and emotional. "They'll like you, Mr. Richard," she said. "Jason is very responsible for his age, and the girls are sweet as angels." When the 3 young siblings appeared in the arrivals area, Richard understood where Grace's strength came from. Jason, a tall and serious 16-year-old, held his twin sister's hands firmly. Emma and Olivia, 12 years old, were younger versions of Grace with the same shy smile and expressive eyes. "Jason, Emma, Olivia, this is Mr. Richard, the one I've told you so much about," Grace said, hugging her siblings. "Nice to meet you," Jason said politely, extending his hand. "Thank you for having us, sir." On the drive home, Richard watched the reunited family in the rearview mirror. The twins chattered about everything that had happened at school. Jason asked about Grace's work, and for the first time since he'd known her, Grace seemed whole. At home, Ethan and Lily eagerly waited to meet Aunt Grace's siblings. The bonding was instant. Jason proved patient and affectionate with the little ones, and the twins quickly became protective older sisters. "Aunt Grace, now we have a huge family," Lily exclaimed happily. Victoria, who had initially resisted the idea, was surprised by the positive dynamic. The house, once quiet and formal, was now full of life and laughter. Jason helped Ethan with drawings, the twins played dolls with Lily, and Grace oversaw everything with her heart overflowing with joy. However, not everything was perfect. A few weeks later, Richard noticed Jason was struggling at his new school. The boy, used to being his sister's emotional provider, felt lost without that responsibility. "Jason, is everything all right?" Richard asked one afternoon, finding the boy alone in the garden. "I'm fine, Mr. Richard, just adjusting." "Adjusting to what?" "Not having to take care of anyone. It's strange. Since I was 10, I was responsible for Emma and Olivia. Now I don't really know where I fit. Richard sat beside him. You know where you fit. As a 16-year-old teenager who deserves to study, dream, and plan his future. But what if Grace needs me? She'll always need you. But as a brother, not a father. There's a difference. That conversation marked the beginning of a transformation for Jason. With Richard's support, he joined the school's robotics club and discovered a passion for technology. The serious, responsible boy gradually gave way to a curious and dreamy teenager. The twins, Emma and Olivia, also flourished. Enrolled in a quality private school, they quickly stood out. Emma showed talent for art and Olivia for science. Surprisingly, Victoria even got involved in helping them with school projects. I never thought I'd enjoy working with paint so much, Victoria laughed, assisting Emma with a painting project. You're so good at this, said Emma. You could teach us. That's how Victoria discovered a new passion. She began holding art workshops for Emma, Olivia, and Lily, and for the first time in years, she felt genuinely useful. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Grace, seeing the whole family grow and thrive, finally found the courage to enroll in a teaching degree. She studied at night, and Richard had hired an assistant to help with the children during that time. But Ethan and Lily kept asking when Aunt Grace would return. She's studying to become an even better teacher for you, Richard explained. But she's already the best teacher in the world, Ethan protested. One day, Richard received a call at the office that would change everything again. It was from the hospital. Grace had fainted at school and was admitted. What do you mean she fainted? Richard asked, already grabbing his car keys. According to the doctors, it's extreme exhaustion and poor nutrition. She's okay but needs rest. Richard arrived at the hospital and found Grace in a bed, looking small and fragile. Jason, Emma, and Olivia were by her side, worried. Mr. Richard, I'm sorry for the trouble, Grace said, trying to sit up. What trouble, Grace? You're working and studying too much. We need to rethink your routine. I have to work, Mr. Richard. I can't. No, you don't. You need to take care of yourself. If you get sick, who'll look after everyone? That's when Richard made the most important decision of his professional life. He offered Grace a partnership in a new company he was creating, a network of child-centered schools with a nurturing methodology. You'd be the educational director. You'd apply on a larger scale everything you already do with Ethan and Lily, and you could study full-time without worrying about money. Mr. Richard, that's impossible. I'm not qualified for that. Not yet. But you will be. And you have something far more important: heart. The proposal scared and moved Grace at the same time. It meant going from being a nanny to becoming a partner. It meant having a voice and decision-making power. It meant fulfilling her deepest dreams. But one fear tormented her. What if I fail? What if I disappoint you? Impossible. You've never disappointed me. You've only taught me. The following months were transformative for the whole family. Grace dedicated herself to her studies with impressive intensity. Richard discovered he loved teaching her about business, while she taught him about child development. Jason, inspired by his sister's example, decided he wanted to study engineering. Emma and Olivia became the top students in their classes. Ethan and Lily, surrounded by so much positive encouragement, thrived exceptionally. Victoria, who had found purpose in her art classes, decided to hold a charity exhibition. The proceeds would go toward building the first school for Richard and Grace's new company. I never thought I could create something like this, Victoria said, looking at her displayed paintings. You always could, Richard replied. You just needed to discover it. The exhibition was a success, every piece sold, and they raised far more than expected. During the opening night, Richard gave a heartfelt speech. This exhibition represents so much more than art. It represents transformation. It represents a family that found each other through love. And it's the beginning of a dream that will impact many more families. Grace, standing beside him, couldn't stop crying. Jason, Emma, and Olivia were proud of their sister. Ethan and Lily didn't fully understand what was happening, but they knew it was something important for Aunt Grace. 6 months later, the first Nurturing Hearts School opened its doors. Grace, now a graduate in education, took on the role of principal. The methodology she had intuitively developed with Ethan and Lily would now be applied to hundreds of children. On the first day of school, Richard was as nervous as if he were the one starting class. "Are you sure you're ready?" he asked Grace. "I have the best preparation possible. I learned hands-on from the people I love most in the world." The school was an immediate success. Parents lined up to enroll their children, impressed by the humanized approach and the genuine care woven into every activity. Jason, now 18 and about to start college, became a weekend volunteer at the school. Emma and Olivia, 14 years old, helped with artistic and scientific activities for the younger children. Ethan and Lily, now 6, were living examples of the education Grace championed. Confident, creative, and kind children who treated everyone with respect. "Aunt Grace, when I grow up, I want to have a school just like yours," Lily said one day. "And I want to work with you, Aunt Grace," Ethan added. Victoria, who had discovered her calling in the arts, opened a studio attached to the school, teaching both children and adults, fostering a vibrant artistic community. A year after the school's opening, Richard received an offer to expand the network to other cities. Grace, now a respected educator, participated as an equal in all decisions. "What do you think, partner?" Richard asked playfully. "I think we have a responsibility to bring this to as many children as possible." "Then let's move forward." During the expansion planning meeting, Richard had a revelation. He looked around the table and saw his extended family, Grace, Jason, Emma, Olivia, Victoria, all working together toward a common goal. "You know, my life completely changed that night I saw Grace sleeping on the floor with Ethan and Lily, right?" "What do you mean, Dad?" Lily asked, doodling in the corner of the room. "That night I learned family isn't just about blood. It's about love, care, and dedication. And you all taught me that true wealth isn't in the bank, but in the people we love." Grace smiled. "You taught me a lot too, Mr. Richard. You showed me dreams can come true when we have support from those who believe in us." "Enough with Mr. Richard, Grace. We're partners. We're family." 5 years later, the Nurturing Hearts Network had 15 locations across the United States. Grace had become a national reference in humanized early education. Jason, now a trained engineer, worked on developing educational technologies for the schools. Emma studied art therapy, and Olivia pursued education to follow in her sister's footsteps. Ethan and Lily, now 11, were exceptional children, not just academically, but in character and compassion. They resolved conflicts through dialogue, helped struggling classmates, and treated everyone with equal respect regardless of social class. "They're your greatest successes," Richard told Grace one day, watching the children play in the garden. "Our greatest successes," she corrected. "They're the result of everything we built together." Richard nodded. His life had taken a completely different path than he'd imagined. He was still a successful businessman, but now he knew success wasn't measured just in money. It was measured in transformed lives, realized dreams, and shared love. Victoria, who had found in art a way to express herself and connect genuinely with others, became a recognized painter. Her works adorned every school in the network, creating warm and inspiring spaces. "Do you remember how we used to be?" asked Richard one evening. "I remember, and I'm ashamed. We were two strangers sharing a luxurious home, raising children we barely knew. And now we're a real family, a big, crazy, wonderful family." The transformation hadn't been easy. There had been moments of tension, adjustment, and doubt. But the genuine love Grace had brought into that house was like a seed that took root and blossomed, growing into a mighty tree under which the whole family could find shelter. Jason, now graduated with a promising job, chose to keep living in the guest house. "This is my family," he said when Richard asked if he wanted to move out. "Why would I leave?" Emma and Olivia, talented and determined teenagers, saw Grace not just as a sister, but as proof that any hardship could be overcome with determination and love. "Grace taught us it doesn't matter where we come from, but where we're going," Emma wrote in a school essay about personal heroes. Olivia wrote something similar. "My sister turned sadness into joy, need into abundance, and fear into courage. She's my hero." One Saturday morning, 10 years after that first life-changing night, Richard woke to the sound of laughter coming from the garden. He looked out the window and was deeply moved by the sight before him. Grace sat on the grass, surrounded by Ethan, Lily, Emma, Olivia, and 3 new children who had been adopted by a family friend through the school's network. Jason was there too, now 28, playing tag with the little ones. Victoria appeared beside Richard at the window. Beautiful sight, isn't it? The most beautiful in the world. Do you regret anything? Richard thought for a moment. I regret taking so long to realize what truly matters in life. But I don't regret anything we've done since. That afternoon, the whole family gathered to celebrate another anniversary of the Nurturing Hearts School Network. During dinner, Richard stood to make a toast. 10 years ago, I was a rich man, but poor in everything that truly matters. I had money, but no family. I had success, but no purpose. I had a house, but no home. He looked at Grace, whose eyes were glistening. Grace, you didn't just care for my children. You saved my family. You taught me that true wealth lies in the love we give and receive. That real success is seeing the people we love flourish. Mr. Richard, Grace said, still fighting the old habit, you gave me the chance to fulfill all my dreams. You gave me a family, a career, a purpose. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Jason stood up. I want to say something. I grew up thinking men shouldn't cry, that we had to be strong all the time. But Richard taught me that real strength is admitting when we need help, embracing the ones we love, and never being ashamed to show affection. Emma and Olivia nodded. You gave us a real family, Emma said. Not just a roof and food, but love, opportunities, dreams. Ethan and Lily, now articulate teenagers, also spoke. Aunt Grace has always been like a second mum to us, Lily said, but now we understand that you're all our family. There's no first or second, just real love. And we've learned family isn't just who you're born with, Ethan added. It's who chooses to stay, to care, to grow together. Victoria, who had become a completely different woman from the one she was 10 years earlier, also shared. I used to be empty, full of hollow commitments and shallow friendships. Grace taught me happiness is in the little things, an afternoon painting with the kids, an honest conversation, a tight hug. The dinner lasted late into the night, filled with stories, laughter, and plans for the future. When everyone had finally gone to sleep, Richard was left alone in the garden, reflecting on the journey. He remembered the man he had been 10 years earlier, a workaholic, distant, focused only on profits and status. He recalled how little he had known his own children, how he had treated employees as mere numbers, how his personal life had been an emptiness disguised as luxury. Now, as he looked around, he saw true abundance. He saw genuine relationships, real purpose, unconditional love. The house that had once been a cold museum had become a home full of life. Grace appeared beside him, as if sensing he needed company. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about how one person can change so many lives. You saved this family, Grace. We saved each other, Richard. I was lost too before I came here. Taking care of Ethan and Lily gave me purpose. Watching my siblings grow gave me strength. Working with you gave me confidence. And now we have a network of schools transforming education across the country. We have hundreds of children growing up with strong values. We have a family that proves love can overcome any difference. Richard smiled. And we have a future full of possibilities. Yes, we do. They stood there in silence for a few minutes, listening to the nighttime sounds of the garden that had witnessed so many transformations over the years. Grace, have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you hadn't come to work here? I have. I'd probably still be in rural Pennsylvania, struggling to support my siblings with no prospects for education or growth. And you? I'd still be rich and unhappy. I'd still be a stranger to my own children. I'd still be living a meaningless life. Then it was fate that brought us together. It was love, Richard corrected. The love you had for your siblings. The love you showed my children. The love you awakened in all of us. Love is what transforms everything. That night, Richard went to bed with peace in his heart. He knew there was still much work ahead, many schools to build, many lives to touch. But he also knew he wasn't alone on this journey. By his side was an extraordinary woman who had taught him the true meaning of wealth. He had children who truly loved and respected him. He had a wife who had rediscovered her passion for life. He had an extended family that was living proof love knows no barriers. And he had a purpose that went far beyond profit, to transform education in the United States. One child at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time. The last thought Richard had before falling asleep was the image that had changed his life. Grace, asleep on the floor, holding Ethan and Lily in her arms. A simple scene that had revealed a profound truth about what truly matters in life. Love. Always love. The end. Now, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this touching story of transformation. Do you believe small acts of love can truly change entire lives? Share your own experiences in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.